Caleb from Brownells here, and in today's quick tip, we're going to be going over how to do a quick assessment of an AR-15. Now, when I say quick assessment, I mean just that, a super quick assessment. So let's say you went with your buddy to the gun show, local gun show, or you're at your local gun shop and considering buying an AR-15. They got a deal that's too good to pass up. What are some of the basic things you should look for? Well, let's jump right into it. So, first things first, this is the gun we built when we did the How to Build an Affordable AR series. So this is that gun. And I know some things on this thing are going to be off because I didn't stake this castle nut. We sent this thing to SHOT Show and it was getting handled by all kind of people. So I know some things on this gun are going to be off, so it's going to be a perfect example of that. Now, first thing you want to do is obviously just a visual inspection. And the reason I'm saying quick assessment here too is because the guys at the gun counter, gun shop, you know, whatever, if it's a private sale, they probably aren't always going to feel too comfortable with you taking their gun apart. So we're going to do things just on the outside without taking it apart. Which I know it kind of sucks. If I was buying a gun, especially an AR-15, I would want to at least crack it open. But we're going to try and stay on the outside for this. External visual inspection, you just want to look for anything out of place or anything missing, I should say. Especially if it's a build that someone's selling you, I'll look for some obvious indicators that they knew what they were doing. One of those is your magazine catch button. So the catch itself, that screw that's coming through, or the actual catch itself, the threaded portion. Let me get a pointing tool here. I'm going to use the back of this Q-tip. So this portion right here, you want to make sure that that's almost flush with the button. If it's sticking past the button, or if it's way deep in there, that's a pretty good indicator that the person putting it together didn't really know what they were doing, because that's an easy part to get right. So that's kind of like strike one, I'm probably going to walk away from this deal kind of situation. Another one being the castle nut. So castle nut, you obviously want the actual castle portion facing backwards. If that's put on backwards, that's a walk away moment. But in all seriousness, you want to check and make sure this thing's hand tight, or not hand tight, but tight. You can't loosen it by hand. The opposite of hand tight, really tight, right? All right, and then this one I'm pretty sure is going to be loose. Yep, there you go. Look at that. Boom. So that's why I always recommend staking your castle nuts. And this one is definitely going to get some well done stake action. Alright, anyways, we'll tighten that back up. So that's something to look for. Also, since you're here, the buffer tube itself, make sure it was installed actually facing down. So just look at it here. Make sure the spine on the back is actually vertical with the receiver and not like some crazy angle off. That's a good thing to look for. Moving forward, the grip's pretty easy to get right. Just make sure the grip's tight. No problems there. Now you do want to make sure the trigger is installed correctly, but you can't do that without opening it up. So at the end of this video, I'll kind of jump in and we'll do that as a bonus then. Alright, takedown pins, you just want to make sure they actually spring back and forth. Even if the guy doesn't want you taking the gun apart, you can still give those a quick press and you're good to go there. Yep, those feel like they're good. Your ejection port cover. You want to make sure that the retaining clip, I don't know if you can see it here, is actually on the rod. So that's something to look for. Because if you're missing that, then you're potentially going to have issues with that rod walking. Alright. And bolt carrier group, there's really nothing you can do from here. Just give it a visual. You can see what kind of bolt carrier group you have, at least in most cases. Handguard alignment. So make sure your handguard is properly aligned with the upper receiver. That's another good thing to tell there. And then moving on, we can just check and make sure our handguard bolts. You can't really check to be sure if they're tight, but you can give a quick visual and just make sure they at least have some torque on them, because they should at least look like they're even, right? So that's what we want to look for there. Let's move forward onto the barrel. And you'd be surprised of what the things I've seen, but you want to make sure your gas tube is not installed upside down. Yes, I have seen upside down gas tubes before. That's why I'm saying this. So the gas tube should come out of the gas block and curve upward and go into the receiver, and you can kind of see that looking under the handguard. What you don't want to see is it coming out, going downward, and then being forced to bend into the upper. Yes, I've seen that before. So that's another thing to check. So gas block itself, the set screws, I just look at the set screws, make sure they're there, and they are below the gas block itself. So I'm looking right here. And then some people are going to look at you weird when you do this. Just take the gun, lock the bolt open. But you want to make sure your gas block is properly aligned. And people are going to probably freak out when you do this. If they'll let you, take the upper off the lower or something. But the only way to really check gas block alignment in this situation is to look right down it. Because that cut in the handguard, you'll be able to see, looking down that cut, you'll be able to see if the gas block is aligned or not. And honestly, this is the most efficient way to do it. And then moving on from there, muzzle device. So you just want to give that a twist, because I've seen loose muzzle devices. Crush washer. The crush washer should come off the barrel, flare out towards the muzzle device if yours has a crush washer, not the other way around. If that was installed backwards, that's another good indicator that whoever built this thing didn't know what they were doing. So that's not like an open invite to shame them on their gun, right? That's just a consideration to maybe walk away from that particular sale. Don't be like, this isn't like a roasting moment. You're not going to stand there and roast the guy on everything wrong with his gun. I mean, you can. I mean, I just don't recommend it, but that's that. Selector lever. You want to make sure there is a positive click. And then we talked about that mag release before. Just make sure it springs. Everything that should spring, you know? That's what you want to check. Okay, so that is really all you can do from the outside of the gun. There's not a whole lot else. You can also, there shouldn't be a lot of play between your upper and lower, but a little bit is acceptable, of course. Same thing with your stock. Optics, I don't really put a lot of concern into optics unless it's an expensive optic. Like I said, this is one of our more affordable builds. We shipped this thing to SHOT Show, and it looks like our optic got dinged pretty good there. And our handguard, but that's okay. Optic, you can just kind of make sure it's mounted forward, not backwards. Yes, I've seen that plenty as well. I'm sure some of you out there have. So that's all you can really do from the outside. Now let's, as a bonus here, if whoever's doing the gun lets you break it open, we can break it open. I mentioned there was something I wanted to check on the trigger. Oh, and your bolt catch, you can, make sure that's springing how it should be. Now when we look at this trigger, if you have a two-piece trigger, or like close to a standard mil-spec like this one here, you want to make sure that the legs, those spring legs coming off the hammer, are on top of your trigger pin, because those legs are what retain your trigger pin. I have seen in some cases where people who build AR-15s, they'll put those legs under that pin. Now there's nothing retaining that pin, and there's not as much tension on the hammer, so you get like a double whammy of no-go there. So that's the new term for today, double whammy of no-go. And that's what you end up with. So you want to make sure that's installed properly. If you want a detailed view on how to install that properly, we have videos on it. Now that we're out of the fire control group and that's all good, thank goodness, because I built this thing, right? I'm kidding, I know what I'm doing sometimes. So what we want to look at now is the buffer retainer. This is another piece that gets messed up quite often by amateur builders. You want to make sure that I'm going to see if I can show you without taking this thing apart here. You just want to make sure that your buffer tube or receiver extension, whatever part of the country you're from, is retaining your buffer retainer. So this shouldn't come flying out when you start taking the gun apart. That's what I'm getting at here. Most of y'all know that. Okay. That's pretty much everything to look for on the lower, other than your trigger guard. You can just kind of do a visual inspection there, make sure that's installed properly. Upper receiver. So, bolt carrier group. Now what we want to look for, bolt carrier group, there's not a whole lot to check. We can just check, without actually using a set of gauges and gauging everything. Visual inspection here. What I like to do is to check the heck out of this gas key, because this thing should be staked, just like this one here. This is a good stake job on this one. Plenty of contact. Gas keys do need to be staked, so make sure they're staked. Other than that, just kind of give it a quick little once over. Look for any obvious blemishes. Oh, some cheaper bolt carrier groups, whenever they machine them, they'll actually leave a burr on the back of this little like railway here, and that can cut into your buffer tube. I've seen that. I've seen burrs on the back of this thing, not this one specifically, but some cheap brands that have a burr on the back, and as that gun was cycling, it was just eating a circle into the face of the buffer, and it was disgusting. So that's something, just look for any obvious burrs there. Okay, where was I? Oh, the upper receiver. So charging handle, that's, just a quick visual on that. Nothing too much to check there. And on the upper, we just want to make sure that our gas tube is protruding about yay far. That's how they should look, just like that. If you don't see the gas tube at all, or if the gas tube's like back here, the bolt wouldn't have fit in it, but that's a indicator. So if you're just buying a stripped upper and your gas tube's like back here, that's a no-go. Alright, and there's no way to fix that other than to change to the correct gas tube. Alright, last thing we want to check here. I'm saying last thing, I hope this is the last thing. Okay, I'm going to try and get you a good visual here. I don't know how we'll do. But the feed ramps, so the ramp right here, you want to make sure that that is one solid piece, right? So you have a feed ramp in the actual barrel extension, then you have feed ramps cut into your upper receiver. You want to make sure that those align. So if you have a barrel that's cut for like A1 feed ramps or a receiver, vice versa, whatever, those aren't going to align properly. They're going to look weird, and what can happen is the nose of that bullet can catch on those feed ramps and cause feeding issues. So you want to make sure your feed ramps look okay. And I said that was the last thing. I'm going to stick with it. That was it. Lubrication, I don't really care about lubrication because I do that myself. So if I'm shopping for a gun and it's super dry or super wet, that's whatever. Super wet makes it inconvenient to do these checks on because you get all dirty. Super dry, I don't care. I can put my own oil in there. Chances are I don't use the oil they're using anyway. Alright, and that's all there is to it. That's your quick assessment of an AR-15 if you're shopping to buy one at a gun show, whatever. Even if you're buying off-the-shelf guns from a reputable manufacturer, not everyone gets it perfect. If you can, you still need to do this check whenever possible. So, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. Also, comment the craziest thing you've seen on an AR-15 that you've seen in like a store or whatever. Let me know down below because I love hearing those stories. And as always, if you need help with anything for any reason ever, feel free to give us a call on the tech line. We'll be happy to help you out. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.